Hello, everyone. It's your two favorite co-hosts, Geo and Dr. Prince. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Geo Trip. It's exciting to be back and to be back with our first guest of season 4. And we're so grateful to you, all the new listeners who have chosen to rock with us. Today's episode has us traveling to one of my favorite countries ever. And I will actually let our guests talk about location. Just kind of want to build your excitement a little bit. But we're traveling there to speak to our esteemed guest, Mr. George Rwegoshora Kato. Mr. George Rwegoshora Kato is a geologist and executive director at Afrikagera Geological Center in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Guess I gave away where we're traveling to. But hey, anyway, he works in between mines, geofields, classrooms, and media rooms. When in mines, he supervises exploration and production activities to ensure quality and high productivity. At the center, he's involved with education, research, and tourism and geoscience, where he works on minerals, rocks, geohazards, climate change, and astronomy. He is passionate about sharing geoscience with communities, and this was the main drive towards initiating the Afrikagera Geological Center. When off work, George enjoys nature photography, swimming, reading, books, and singing. George is an especially good singer. His life is more of an integration of science and art, and we are very excited to have him as our guest today. Mr. George, welcome.
Thank you so much, Lay and Kieran. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
We're glad to have you, George. Kyron, do you want to get us kicked off and right off the bat?
Welcome again, George. One thing that we usually start with is we just want you to tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got interested in geology.
Okay, I am George Rwegoshora Kato, and I was born in Bukoba, Kagera, which is the northwestern part of Tanzania. So I studied there since my childhood education to my secondary education, then my advanced level studies and university studies. I had to come to Dar es Salaam, which is the business capital of Tanzania. So how did I enter into geosciences? It was my father who was excited with mining, and most especially with mining after seeing his friends being successful. So he also wanted his son to be into mining. So he's the one who motivated me to go into mining. And initially I wanted to be the telecommunication engineer or an electronics engineer. But then after sitting down and getting some wisdom from my father, then I came into mining. And later, by the way, initially I started studying mining engineering, but then later on I changed into geosciences. So that's how I came into mining. And with the fact that my father is the one who chose for me the course, but then later on I started loving it and got more excited about geology and geosciences. So that's how I got into this.
So it's so interesting to hear that, there was that parental connection in choosing a career. I think yourself and Liaika have slightly similar stories where your dads were the ones who had that initial interest in geoscience, and it passed on to the next generation. Hopefully I can inspire my boys to follow my footsteps into the geosciences.
Yeah, it is possible.
So true. It's amazing sometimes when I talk to geoscientists and realize how many of us have the same story, that it's essentially a legacy type of career. Either a parental figure or favorite aunt or uncle was a geologist or is a geologist, and that's kind of where we get our start. With that being said, and hearing your father's influence and the fact that aside from having that geo or I guess soft rock, you also have hard rock influence, I need to ask George, what do you consider yourself if you had to label yourself? Are you a miner? Are you a geoscientist, earth scientist, general? And I ask this because you have a lot of overlapping fields. So I'd love to hear how you describe yourself.
Yeah, I consider myself a little bit, okay, maybe a generalist because I'm into many things. I'm into tourism, I'm into mining, I'm into geology. So I'm a generalist, but maybe 70 or 80% a geoscientist because I'm more into geology than other issues. By the way, I'm also into astronomy, but I would prefer being a geoscientist.
That's a lot of cool interest there.
Yeah.
And I had to ask, not to put you on the spot, but again to highlight our audience about how dynamic our field is and the fact that you can wear many hats because science is so interconnected, so interdisciplinary. With that being said, I would love if we could kind of kick off and talk a little bit about your mining experience. And the reason I say this is because you actively work in the mining industry. So can you, in a plain language summary, explain to our audience about some of the fundamentals of mining?
Yeah, actually what I do in mining as a geoscientist, I do supervise the mining activities, look on how the operators are digging out the minerals to ensure that if it is, for instance, in coal, when I was in a coal mine, I was to ensure that it is the light strata that is being mined, the light strata of coal that is being mined and taken to the rampart. Because when you mix things up, you will have caused the dilution. So that is mining supervise, the supervision of mining. But I also supervise drilling because when you're doing mining, you also have to continue exploring the deposits that you might need in weeks to come or even in a year to come. So while mining, I also supervise drilling, be it the river circulation drilling or the diamond drilling. And then another thing is, as a geoscientist, I also check on the quality, right from the mining site to the rampart and to the processing facilities by ensuring that I do sampling and take to the laboratory. And then I have to recheck the quality tests from the laboratory and advise on how mining should be done. Or maybe, for instance, if it is coal, advise on blending issues. So as if it is now with coal, there is what we call the calorific value or the heating value. If it is high, then you can do some blending so as to reduce the heat value. Or if it is low, when you do blending, you can increase the heat value, depending on what the customers want. Yeah, so that's how it is. Mining, processing, and the quality. So I play around those fields, but most times I'm in the mine, trying to ensure that what is mined is the best. And then the scientists, the mineral processing engineers, the chemists can carry on from there.
There's this really interesting quote that I heard once, and it's stuck with me ever since. The saying goes, if it's not grown, it's mined. And I tell that to my students when we talk about things like minerals. So could you just, for those who don't have an idea of what mining is, why we mine, tell us kind of how many of the things that we use in our everyday lives, kind of that they actually do come from mining activity.
Okay. The phones that we use have gold, they have lithium, they also have quartz, the glass on the phone, and several other minerals, and the rare earth metals also. And the houses that we build are built by limestone, but also the paintings that we use are manufactured by kaolin or kaolinite. The water that we drink we'll need some minerals like diatomite for the purification, and also sand, the quasi sand for purification. So you find that mining is very important, not only for the economics, but also for the health of the people, because it also helps in ensuring that now we have clean water. But also in medicine, we have minerals that are used to manufacture several medicines, like the calcites, the limestones. We get some calcium from the carbonate minerals, and also some other several minerals that we get medicines from. So mining and the minerals, they are still important. The gold, so as to ensure that the economy of the country is stable, and we have many gold deposits. So the diamonds, so minerals and mining are very, very important to the people. Be the people, be the economy of the country. It's very, very important.
So it sounds like life as we know it and society as we know it wouldn't be the same if we didn't have mining and we didn't extract these minerals for use. But could you also touch on some of the cons that come along with mining, some of the downsides potentially?
Yeah, we have some disadvantages that come with mining, and some are like the pollution, especially in areas that maybe where companies mine near water bodies like rivers and lakes. And in most cases, mining goes on with extraction, where now you have to use chemicals. So in some cases, the water pollutant are deposited, let me put it that way, or they are sent to the rivers, which in the later cases they cause severe health effects to the people. That's one of the effects. But also another effect is the blastings that go on in mines. They do affect people, and when the government is not aware of this, people might be affected gradually, because now some people have heart attacks and pressure issues. So that's another case. And there have been cases reported in the western part of Tanzania that crops are not growing as it was before. And some people are saying maybe it is because of the chemicals that have been used in mining gold, because in some cases people use mercury in mining. So that goes to affect the soils, and that will mean in the end you won't have the crop yields that you expected to have. Then eventually that will also bring an effect to the health of the people, because if the soils have chemicals or mineral pollutants, that means they will go into the foods, and then the foods that are taken by the people will affect them. So it is an effectual chain that should be seen on how it can be stopped, so as mining can be sustainable, not to be a problem, but then an advantage to the people.
Thank you so much for sharing your insight on some of both the pros and cons associated with mining, George. Which leads me to ask, based on your experience supervising exploration and production activities in mining, what are some more sustainable or safer practices you'd like to see implemented? Because I think when we think about science, especially as we move forward, we want to always ensure that we're putting our communities first and that they're benefiting.
Yeah, some of what can be implemented. I was once in a coal mine, and I saw how the other black dust goes into the air, and people just leave it as it was. And I thought of some technology that can like suck that polluted air, all of it, and then instead of going into the air. So that is one thing that we can think of. Maybe it is there in America. So maybe if it can be brought this way to Tanzania, that can be good. Because in most mines, the air during mining or the air during processing is polluted by the smoke or from the dust that comes after processing the coal. And this dust goes to the air. So if there are some technologies that we can build, that this technology can be used to suck or obtain that poisonous gas, that can do some help actually, and we can do something to reduce the greenhouse gases and other gases that bring effects to the atmosphere.
Thank you for that. So I think we touch a lot on kind of the effects on people when we don't practice sustainable mining. I guess part of the bigger picture as well is we have this kind of structural imbalance or inequities where I think about places like the Congo, where we see a country that's really rich in mineral resources, but is at the same time somewhat underdeveloped. And I guess today is the day for quotes. There was another one that I heard that there are no underdeveloped countries, there are just overexploited ones. As a mining geologist, could you just touch briefly on kind of what's happening in the Congo?
Yeah, and the good thing is Congo is just very, very near to Tanzania. I think the challenge is the nation has to put laws on how its mineral resources should be used, other than, the one thing I have seen in some African countries, we wait for the investors to come, and then it is them to decide on what has to be done at times. So for me, I see there is no reason for the minerals can be mined and let the country get the share and the investor. And the good thing is Congo can learn from the countries that have used the mineral resources well, like Tanzania itself, South Africa, China and Canada. China has a lot of minerals, though it is not that much hype, but China has a lot of minerals. We can actually, most of the countries in Africa have to learn from how China has used its minerals and has extracted its minerals. And at the same time, it's importing many minerals, and it is also exporting many minerals. So it wants to get the largest share of the minerals. So the problem or the challenge starts with the leaders. If the leaders are not serious with the issue, then nobody else will be serious with the issue. So the leaders have to put laws that govern the extraction. And there's actually no need to. No, I don't see the reason for any war, because these are minerals. They will be mined, and then we want to see changes in the people. Yeah, but otherwise, if leaders are maybe onto themselves only, or they only check their benefits, that's where the problem starts. When you have leaders that only check their benefits, we do not look on 2 generations to come. We do not look onto the 50 years, 100 years to come. People look onto the 5 years of elections, 10 years of elections, and then it's done. But then as a country, people have to sit down and look, what are the generations to come going to benefit? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years to come, what will be done? Now, the challenge is in some countries in Africa, the governments enter some agreements for 30 years. You enter mineral agreements for 30 years now with some private company. But you have forgot that you have people that are studying that could come and exploit those minerals. So that's a challenge. There should be a way that the leaders look onto the generations to come. How will these generations benefit?
So true. Yeah. And for those of you that aren't aware, the Congo is one of the richest countries in terms of resources and natural resources, one of those being cobalt. A lot of time when we talk about transitioning to green and clean energy, we think about lithium because lithium is used a lot in batteries, so we can store energy from renewables, we can have electric vehicles, but cobalt is a really important mineral in that process. And a lot of it comes from the Congo, and there's a lot of conflict around it and other issues that maybe we specifically focus on in another episode. But I also wanted to touch on another important mineral for, this green energy revolution. And that's one that you mine actually for in Tanzania. It's graphite. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of what graphite is used for?
Yeah, graphite. We are lucky to have graphite in Tanzania. And graphite in Tanzania is found in the metamorphic region of the Mozambique belt that actually starts from Mozambique, goes through the eastern Tanzania, and then to Kenya. And it is an industrial mineral that contains carbon in its natural state and found in metamorphic and igneous rocks. It is resistant to heat, its inertness, softness, and it has a low specific gravity. So graphite is used in various uses, and some of them are in the manufacturing of an electric car battery. So used in manufacturing of dry lubricants, the black linings and foundry facings. But then some other uses are like the manufacturing of the pencil, which has been done for ages. And another thing is it is also used into the manufacturing of graphene, which is some material, a chemistry material, and also it is used in manufacturing of the expanded graphite. So those are the uses of graphite, if I'm to answer your question now.
I actually saw as well that it's used in solar panels. So I just imagine its importance will continue to grow in the future.
Great answers and great insight, George. Thank you so much for sharing this with us so far. Just to kind of recap or summarize for our audience, a lot of what we've talked about so far are mining processes, some of the pros and cons, sustainability practices in mining, and also just some of the everyday uses of the minerals that are being mined. So for instance, like we mentioned earlier, cobalt, why it's such a hot topic, aside from its conflict in mining practices, which we're definitely going to address in another episode. It's commonly used for a lot of the EVs, electric vehicle technology, so your cell phones, Team Apple all the way. So kind of think about this when you're doing every day, right? How are you actually using these minerals and what it means in how we use them and how we practice usage of them. Graphite, like Dr. Prince and both George mentioned, useful in solar panels and so forth. But I kind of want to rewind a little bit to something that George said when we were talking about, when we introduced thinking about some of the products of mining and also some ways to implement more sustainable practices. And while we did touch on government and government role, a problem we also experience in the Caribbean, at looking at you, Guyana, and Trinidad and Tobago, but we'll do that in another topic with our oil and gas. I do want us to actually think about the second thing that George said, which was the people and getting people aware and educated, and not only aware and educated, but also comfortable having these discussions and understanding what's going on, how that would actually pave the way for not only demanding better, but also having more continuous sustainable practices. So that brings me to want to talk a little bit, George, about your geoeducation initiative and the company that you have founded. If you can share with our audience a little bit about your mission, the work that you've done, and just kind of how you got there in this journey, please.
Yeah, thanks, Leigh and Kieran. Yeah, Afrikagera Geological Center. I had this idea when I was attending it was an innovation week in Tanzania. and I thought of starting this. But then initially, I was already interested in educating, in teaching. I like teaching, I like reading, and I like writing. So when in my second year, I was excited with the minerals and rocks course by my lecturer, Dr. Kazimoto, and that's where I started developing my passion of teaching. And after, when in my fourth year, I started writing, and then later on, I thought of now starting the Afrikagera Geological Center. So we are into education, into research and tourism, and all these go on to touching minerals. We touch on rocks, we touch on geohazards, we touch on astronomy, we also touch on climate change. That's what we do. And we do this through radios and TV programs. We do this in schools through some presentations and seminars. And that is for the education part. But for the research part, we have some field visits to do some research activities. And in tourism, we do hold some geotourism activities. By the way, there is some new section of tourism which is called geological tourism, or some other term is geotourism, of which you introduce people to some geological features, geological sites, but also mine sites. So you take people to the mountains, you take people to the volcanoes, you take people to the mine sites. They view and they pay for it, just as they can go to the beach, or they can go to the wildlife parks and enjoy. So that's what we do at Afrikagera Geological Center.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing all that. Definitely have been actually following geotourism because it's a passion of mine, something that I've also been working on myself. So was really excited when I came across Afrikagera Geological Center. And so do you mind sharing with our audience, for those who are hearing about it for the first time, how they can find out more information or become involved with, or just kind of keep abreast with what you're doing or the work that you are producing out of Afrikagera Geological Center?
Yeah, the good thing is we do share our activities on social media pages. We are live on Twitter, on Facebook, with the same name, Afrikagera Geological Center. But we also have a website, afrikagerageologicalcenter.wordpress.com, where we share our activities, the articles that we write, but the activities that we do, be it monthly or in a year or in half a year. So we share everything there, and so anyone can send us a message, and then we can look on how we can help or maybe collaborate. If there is someone that needs to collaborate with us, we are open for collaborations anytime and any place. So we are happy to receive friends and colleagues who are interested.
Man, it sounds like the Geo trip needs to be collaborating so we can have a field trip to Tanzania led by the Afrikagera Geological Center. What do you think, Dr. Prince?
Looking at tickets as we speak. It's been such a pleasure hearing about your technical background, your geo education work. But here at the Geo Trip, we also like to get to know our guests a little bit better, get some personal insights into you. And to do that, we actually have this segment that we hit you with some quick fire questions, and you just tell us the first thing that comes to mind. All right? Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm very ready. I'm ready.
Okay. Question number 1. Where is the deepest mine in the world located?
In South Africa.
All right. Well done. That is correct. It's the Anglo Gold Ashanti's mine near Johannesburg in South Africa for our listeners.
Wow, you know your mind. That's so great. That was actually a fun little fact, Dr. Prince. So then question number 2. What is the ceiling of a mine called?
The ceiling of a mine?
Yes, sir.
I don't know.
So it turns out the ceiling of an underground mine is called a back, or referred to as a back.
Okay, thank you.
The back of the beast?
I did not know that either. While we were doing our research, getting prepared, I was like, oh, wow. I did not realize that the parts of the mine were that intimately labeled.
Yeah, I know there's like the hanging wall, foot wall. Is that just a fault thing or a mine thing?
That's more of a false thing, isn't it? But it came from, or it was derived from miners, where they would actually put the lamp when they were chiseling at the veins.
Yeah.
Come through riftology.
You
don't have to think too hard about this one. What is the deepest mine that you've been in?
The deepest mine? In the Ruvuma Coal Limited mine in Binga. Though it's not that much deep. I've been working in open cast mines, so and open cast mines are not that much deep. So that is the deepest one, maybe 30 meters from the Earth's surface.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Oh wow, 30 meters. That's still pretty deep though. Something about going into small spaces underground makes me a little bit nervous. So I am definitely impressed.
Yeah.
So fun question. Do you prefer or do you consider yourself team Ugali or Chipsy Mayao?
You mean what is the best dish for me between those two?
Yes.
Oh, I chips my eye. I don't like ugali.
Chips my eye. You don't like ugali? Oh.
I don't like it. I come from the area. I come from the northwestern part where we eat matoke. We eat banana. So I don't like
say ugali. Banana. Are you talking about like the green bananas, like what we call plantains?
Yeah, actually, we boil them and then we mix with fish and beans, and then we eat as it is. So growing up, I've been eating that, and we were eating ugali some little time, not much.
Man, I'm ready to book for Tanzania. I love how we in the diaspora eat the same thing, just prepare it different ways.
I was just about to say that, like we would call it like provision and fish, provision and beans. Last question for you, and forgive the pronunciation. Okay,
no problem.
What's the soundtrack that you like when you're doing your field work?
Okay, I like bongo flava. I like bongo flava. I like my traditional songs from my area, the higher songs. Yeah. So in Tanzania we have the bongo flava. I like it. Yeah.
All right. So George, it's been such a pleasure speaking to you. Neither of us are minors. I know we definitely have learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience has too. We'd love to have you back to tell us more about Tanzania and all of the wonderful natural resources you all have been blessed with. So as we close out, once again, could you let our followers know how they can connect with you and your organization one more time?
Yeah, so they can connect with us on Facebook and Twitter through the names Afrikagera Geological Center, and my name on Facebook. And my name on Facebook, I use George Rwegoshora, and on Twitter, I use the handle @Rwegolite. So that's my nickname, Rwegolite. Yeah, so that's how they can find us. But also we use Afrikagera Geological Center.wordpress.com as our website, where we write our articles on geosciences and minerals and rocks.
Wonderful. So listeners, on behalf of Geo and myself, thank you again for tuning into another episode of the Geo Trip. And if you want to keep the conversation going, please get in touch with us if you have questions about this episode, about geoscience, why some natural disasters seem to be occurring more commonly, or maybe you're just really curious about how the natural world works. You can send us your questions at GeoTrip Podcast on X, formerly known as Twitter, or you can email us at thegeotrippodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget, geoscience is everywhere around us. Now you know that minerals are the bedrock of society. So next time you're outside, take a look at the rocks, the mountains, or even the ground beneath your feet. Whole story written in stone, just waiting to be discovered. We'll see you on the next episode of the Geo Trip.